The American climate is one of the most diverse climates in the entire world. Summer temperatures can regularly reach over the 100-degree Fahrenheit mark while still going below freezing in other parts of the country, all under the same border. The lower 48 is also home to what many consider to be the hottest place on Earth, Death Valley. Air temperatures are often recorded above the 110-degree mark, and it holds the record for the hottest air temperature ever recorded, 134 degrees Fahrenheit at Furnace Creek on July 10, 1913. Death Valley is now an incredibly sparsely populated part of the country and became classified as a national park in 1994, with around 90% of the land being preserved for wildlife. In such a harsh environment, it would be hard to imagine anybody willing to endure the extreme temperatures of the desert, even with the modern-day enhancements of air conditioning, cruising down the desolate roads and byways of the scorched earth. Sutter's Mill, located at the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, was a simple water-powered sawmill powered by the South Fork American River. A Swiss immigrant by the name of John Sutter was its owner, who would swindle a large tract of land from then California Governor Juan Bautista Alvarado around 1839. With this land in the Central Valley of California, he would begin to form his European settlement entitled New Helvetia, or New Switzerland. This de facto colony would later become the California capital that we know today as Sacramento. The vast wilderness, mostly inhabited by native tribes, was about to nearly triple in size in the coming decades, all because of the discovery of one James W. Marshall. During construction of the mill in 1848, gold was found on the banks of the South Fork American River, and California would never be the same again. As word began to be passed around the country and across the Atlantic Ocean, hundreds of thousands of settlers and immigrants would risk their lives to travel to the last frontier of the lower 48, leaving a wake of destruction in their path. Just 7 days after the landmark discovery, the United States would finally settle the years-long Mexican-American War in February of 1848, officially annexing California as a territory. But that's a story for a different day. I want to hone in on just one of the groups that made the perilous journey to those fated California valleys: Captain Jefferson Hunt's Lost 49ers.
In the shadow of the valley, I would like to settle down.
In October of 1849, a group of mostly Americans from the South and Midwest, with a few groups of immigrants, decided to set off on their journey after spending a few months preparing after arriving in Salt Lake City sometime during the summer. The expedition, however, was ill-advised from the beginning, as locals explained that traversing the Sierra Nevada mountains so close to the wintertime proved fatal. Just a few years earlier, in the winter of 1846, the Donner Party, comprised of pioneers from the Midwest, would lose nearly half of their party and revert to cannibalism to survive the harsh winter on the peaks of the range. Despite this knowledge, the group of over 100 caravans and 500 livestock would set off with the only guide, Captain Jefferson Hunt, who was willing to lead the ill-fated expedition. He would take them on the safer but much longer Old Spanish Trail that was to pass south of the mountain range and then head north. The journey began in a rather mundane fashion for the first 250 or so miles, passing sections of empty desert inching southwesterly along the proposed path. It would be near the modern-day town of Enterprise, Utah, in the southwest corner of the state, that a proposition would be made: a shortcut, potentially saving around 500 miles on the journey. On October 26th of 1849, an unnamed man would produce a map of a shortcut through the supposed Walker's Pass, and dissension became prevalent among the group. After intense discussion, all of the wagons, except for 7, broke away from Hunt's group to follow the shortcut. Immediately recognizing the treachery of riding into little charted territory, most of the wagons would end up rejoining Hunt's caravan shortly after, leaving around 27 wagons with the Jayhawkers, the group that spearheaded the conversation around taking the shortcut. This group would endure immense hardship and uncertainty in the following weeks, but nothing would compare to their hellish experience in the aptly named Death Valley. As Hunt's group continued southerly, reaching their first major stopover point in Los Angeles on December 22nd of 1849, the Jayhawkers and a few families, namely the Bennett, Arcane, and Breyer families, trudged their way westward. Upon reaching uncharted territory due to a fault in the supposed shortcut map, the groups would split apart in a disagreement of how to proceed. The Jayhawkers continued their path for 5 days without finding a source of water, exhausting all that had been stored from a playa lake at the diversion point. The Bryars had traveled on their own, while the Bennett and Arcane families traveled together. Along the way, livestock were lost, and battles with the local Native Americans left the groups weakened and disheartened. Fortunately, though, however, eventually the groups converged near Furnace Creek, California on Christmas Eve of 1849 and set up camp in the heart of Death Valley. Since the dawn of time, there has always been an undying urge for man to overcome the forces of nature, whether it may be attempting to cross the vast oceans with crudely constructed rafts or attempting to climb Mount Everest. Man is seemingly always at odds with nature. Although technological advances have made achieving such tasks easier and more efficient, early challengers are often given the most monumental challenges. We live in a world where inescapable heat can be aided with relative ease, but with nothing but a wagon and livestock, the absolute wrath of Mother Nature can be put on full display. From the memories of the frostbitten and starved people of the Donner Party just 100 or so miles away, the reality of 110-degree heat in direct sunlight set in. A trip that would only take around an hour by car today took the group nearly 2 months, going days at a time without water, having to kill their livestock for food, and destroying their wagons for firewood. The fool's gold that was originally intended to be a shortcut became evidently a nightmare. A base camp was set up when it was decided that the group could no longer move forward. 2 men, William L. Manley and John Rogers, were picked to set off to find a civilization and return back with supplies. After about 26 days of travel, they descended upon the San Fernando Mission, where they were supplied with horses, water, and food to travel back to the camp. Upon arrival at the last camp, the two stumbled across a grim sight. The body of Captain Culverwell, the captain of the base camp, had been found with the remaining livestock looking extremely emaciated. A few families and the Jayhawkers had set off, convinced the two would never return. Only the Bennett and Arcane families remained at the camp, with Culverwell succumbing to the elements after walking back to the camp from a prior departure with the Wade family. Truth be told, there is really only evidence that one person died during those fateful days, although the number is rumored to be as high as 10, including some of the lost Jayhawkers group. While in search for the rumored riches of those Central California valleys, the many thousands of travelers left death and destruction in their wake. John Sutter, the man who was at the crux of this movement, may not have been the most virtuous individual, but it goes to show that whether the impact you've made is either good, bad, or neutral, the waves of past decisions will be felt for decades or even centuries to come. Today, California is the biggest state in the country with the highest state GDP in the nation. People flock from across the world to work in the modern-day gold mines to become a Hollywood star or work in Silicon Valley. The allure of the Californian nature and way of life is seemingly an undying reality. Whether that be true 20 years ago or 200 years ago, the result stays the same. As the remaining members of the group set off from the last camp with Manley and Rogers, leaving the unforgiving heat of the valley, it is rumored that a traveler uttered the phrase, "Goodbye, Death Valley," in regards to the torturous experience they had all endured, casting the first droplet whose waves will be continuously felt for centuries to come. Thanks for watching. Peace.
It's a mix of this shit stirred up out in the background scene, looking like the dog got in the trash, fitting back away, a nigga tryna pop in the bag, catch a microwave, I forgot it's a splash when I cash out, blackout, trapped out my dad house, Jim Carrey the DVD, I pull a mask out, lunchtime, grilling, get a pack, mad loud, hit a play, run a route, I might pull a map out, I ain't jump off the porch, nigga I flew, who with the new, them 3 letters need 2, I got swine on my eyes, they catch a, and my mama be sick, funeral flu, if you know, and if you knew, you get to rap.